Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and today we're taking a look at the best Kershaw folding knives that you can buy right now in 2020. Let's check them out. Now Kershaw, of course, is just a classic American company that was started back in the day by Pete Kershaw when he left Gerber to start his own brand. Now these days they are owned by Kai, which is the parent company also of Shun Kitchen Knives, as well as Zero Tolerance. And even though the parent company is Japanese, Kershaw is still based in the Portland area today, and they even make a lot of their lineup in the USA still, supplemented by other imported models. Now because their position is kind of the budget sister brand to the higher end ZT knives, and in fact a lot of their production takes place in some of the same facilities, a lot of Kershaw's American models are real high quality, but they don't break the bank, and that's why we're going to start with one of those models, the Kershaw Bareknuckle. I think this knife perfectly encapsulates those ideas because you get some real premium feeling fit and finish at prices that only start just over 75 bucks. Now the Bareknuckle was actually based on a zero tolerance knife originally. This was based on the ZT770, and it honestly feels just about as good as most ZTs these days. It's just fantastic in the hand. You've got a great combination of style as well as everyday capability going on here. I especially like the blade shape. It's not a hawkbill or a bird's beak type of blade in terms of its actual technical profile shape, but it does remind me a little bit of a swooping bird of prey that's just kind of ready to strike. You got 3.5 inches of steel that's ready to work hard, made from 14C 28N stainless, which is a fine-grained Swedish steel that shows up on a lot of Kershaw's lower to mid-priced offerings. Now this was actually co-developed between Sandvik, the steel company, and Kershaw at the beginning. It was exclusive to them at first before becoming more widely available, and that's why these days this is probably one of my favorite top-end entry-level steels. It stays sharp very well, and it takes a very fine edge very easily, and it's got a high toughness and edge stability as well, which is something that definitely helps on some of the thinner edges on these Kershaw knives. This version of the Bareknuckle has a stone-washed finish as well, which is going to help scratches to blend in so that you're going to have no qualms about actually putting this blade to use. This series also goes more premium with one of our KnifeCenter exclusive versions, and this features a black DLC coated blade with CPM 20CV blade steel, which gives you truly premium edge retention at a fantastic bargain at just the $120 mark. Now as far as the locking mechanism, since this is based on the ZT770, the Bareknuckle utilizes their patented subframe lock. This essentially takes the lock bar from a frame lock, isolates it, and then anchors it to another material on the back. Now this offers the security of a full frame lock, but it lets them pair it with another material on the back, either for more style or contrast, in this case anodized aluminum that you see on both sides. But they can also use this lock to save weight, since aluminum is lighter than the steel of the lock bar, and they've even used carbon fiber on some ZT models. Rounding this knife out is a deep carry pocket clip that is reversible, and some nice crisp flipping action thanks to the KVT ball bearings in the pivot. Now if you like the look of this knife but you want a more budget-friendly price, you should check out the smaller but very similar Natrix series. Now the Natrix is also based on the ZT770. The shape is very similar to that Bareknuckle, but this one is an imported from China model to hit a lower price. This one right here comes in at just over 30 bucks right now. Now this is the standard size for the model, which is about 3¼ inches of blade, although there are smaller and larger versions available. You still get that really cool sub-frame lock, in this case paired with G10. As far as the steel, you get 8CR13 MOV, which is a stainless that's pretty close to AUS 8, which before 14C 28N came along was my favorite of the entry-level steels. There are, however, some copper-handled versions available right now with D2 steel. It's going to give you more edge retention, but at the trade-off of being a little bit harder to sharpen than this knife. And then like the full-size model, you've also got that nice reversible deep carry clip and KVT bearings for some very excellent action. All right, we're going to go from one of their newest designs to one of their older designs. Also American-made, the Ken Onion designed Leek. Now not only is this a classic Kershaw model, it's still going strong today. I kind of think of it as Kershaw's Buck 110 folding hunter. Now not in terms of the actual style or look, of course, but I could say that for the fact that the base version of this knife is still just about the same as when it was released about 20 years ago, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. Like that buck knife, it's a design that works just about as well as it does today as when it was introduced, It's also a design I think every knife nut should own at least one of at some point. And yet another thing like the 110, in addition to the classic version, there are a bunch of fancier variants too, with upgraded handles or blade steel options. This one itself actually features another one of Kershaw's signature design elements, their patented composite blade technology. Now it blends in a little bit on the finish of this knife, but you can kind of think of the top and the bottom of this blade as being two pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. And then you can see the wavy line where the two of them are actually welded together. And what they can do with that is they can typically have a more premium steel at the edge itself, which ostensibly makes it cheaper than using that steel for the entire blade. In this case, we've got stainless 14C28N at the spine of the knife and CPM D2 at the edge, which is going to maintain the edge holding of D2, but being easier to sharpen in the process and a bit tougher as well. Plus, this process just looks really cool. Now on top of that, this knife has Kershaw's black wash finish on both the blade and the stainless steel handles itself, which is essentially a forced patina, which is then tumbled to achieve this desired rugged look, and it's been very popular since they first introduced it. This knife also features a flipper mechanism for opening, but we've got SpeedSafe assisted opening technology, which is something Ken Onion himself actually invented, kind of helped kick off the assisted opening craze. Now once you open the blade partway manually, a spring's going to take over and finish the opening action. Now it's very satisfying to operate, and it gets you close to the action of a switchblade without actually being an automatic, but check your local regs of course. Now not only is this one of the best Kershaws, but it's also one of the best EDC pocket knives out there. Honestly, one of the ones that's found its way into more pockets of KnifeCenter employees than probably any other single design. We've got a 3-inch blade length with the modified Wharncliffe shape. It's really perfect for daily tasks, and the whole package put together is slim, pocketable, refined, and ultimately very capable. Now it's impossible to talk about the Leek without also mentioning another newer model, because there's kind of a bit of an internal rivalry among Kershaw fans as to whether the Dividend is a newer, better Leek. Now it's certainly a fun argument to think about, a good rabbit hole to kind of go down. I think they're slightly different enough that there's a good warrant for having them both in the lineup, but they do kind of fill a similar role, I will admit. The Dividend here at the bottom, it's just a touch bigger and the ergos are slightly different, but it does have that same sleek styling and SpeedSafe assisted opening and American-made construction. Now this model starts at $45 for this synthetic handled version with a liner lock and a 420HC steel blade rather than 14C28, but you can move up the ladder to get some aluminum handles with a Damascus blade or a slim and slicey M390 blade for just $77, which is a crazy good bargain. But my favorite version of the Dividend was actually released earlier this year, and it's the one that really reminds me of old World War II fighters. For about $83, you can get this knife with a milled olive green aluminum handle and this wicked shark tooth style composite blade with N690 steel at the spine and darkened CPM D2 at the cutting edge. Certainly looks fantastic. Now this next knife I actually think of as kind of a chunkier Dividend, and I mean that in a good way. Up top here is the Kershaw Link, not the Leek, the Link, which is kind of a broader and more workman-like interpretation of that kind of Dividend aesthetic. And it's pretty cool to actually put the Leek, the Dividend, and the Link in a row. You can kind of see the shape shifting going on from one model to the next. Really cool to look at. Now the base models of the Link start around $50. They're made in the USA, and they come with aluminum handles and a SpeedSafe equipped 420HC blade. This one here anodized blue on the handles with a black wash finish on the blade. Now the handle on the Link is more filling than anything we've looked at so far, which allows you to get a little bit of a better grip for harder work, and I especially love the blade shape here as well. In a way, it's actually got a little bit in common with the Bareknuckle from before. You've got almost a continuous curve to the edge, which is going to be excellent for slicing, especially when paired with this high flat grind, and the tip is still nice and acute so you can pierce very well. Now, and another thing that's similar to the Dividend, the top versions of the Link are fantastic bargains. There's a version with a very similar milled aluminum handle to my favorite Dividend on that Link, and they pair it with a CPM 20 CV blade for just $83, which is a truly spectacular deal for the performance that you're gonna get. All right, next up is another knife that's a little bit more of a workhorse even than the Link, which is the Kershaw Blur, another USA-made Ken Onion classic in the lineup. It's another long-running model that's great for both tactical as well as EDC needs. Now you do have SpeedSafe assisted opening on these knives as well, along with aluminum handles with nice grippy inserts for a good bit of traction. They've also constructed this knife with an open style of construction, so there's no backspacer to keep lint trapped in there, so it's going to be nice and easy to clean too. Now if this knife were to be made today, it probably would come with a flipper tab, but instead you do get thumb studs here, and those thumb studs are actually one of the signature elements of this design. Now they're not oversized, but they are angled out in such a way that it's going to help with opening even if you're wearing heavier gloves. Just push that open and that SpeedSafe is going to take over and snap the blade open. Likewise, the shape of the handle is going to be very accommodating whether you're wearing gloves or if you have larger hands, thanks to the neutral shape. Now as far as blades, you can get it with the Tonto profile that you see here, or this drop point profile that's got a little bit of a recurve to the edge. And that's going to increase the usable edge, and it also increases the slicing capabilities on the draw cut. Some of those are even going to come with partial serrations, which are really going to be able to take advantage of that recurve and really rip through some material, especially some fibrous stuff like fabric or rope. Now this Tonto version uses a BDZ1 steel, and it comes with their signature tiger stripe finish, which makes it instantly identifiable as a Kershaw and ZT product. Meanwhile, this drop point features an Alabama Damascus blade, which is made in the USA. Now there's actually not a lot of production companies out there that make folders with a traditional carbon steel Damascus like this, so you are going to have to keep it clean to ward off corrosion, but you're going to get a very tough blade in exchange for that. Now you can also get this knife with the simpler 14C28N starting around the $75 mark, all the way up to something like S30V for about $95, which makes good solid performance on a good solid folder. Now for a more affordable workhorse, one of their imports, the Rick Hinderer designed Cryo II, which is one of their high quality imports that runs from about the $30 to $45 mark depending on which version you choose. You've got a stainless steel frame lock with 8CR13 steel and SpeedSafe assisted opening with a flipper tab, as well as thumb studs if you'd rather open it that way. You've also got a 4-position pocket clip that when it's mounted with the tip facing down is deep carry, or you can have it with the tip facing up and have a little bit more handle to grab onto in your pocket. This knife definitely has that Rick Hinderer style, including one of his signature hardware elements, which is this disc here on the back that's going to act as an over travel arrestor for that frame lock. It's going to keep you from pushing the lock bar out too far if you get overzealous when you're closing the knife. Overall, there's not really much to say about this knife except this. It's going to work hard for you without breaking the bank, and you're going to be able to feel that quality as soon as you pick it up. I'm going to stick with their imports for a moment, and we'll go with something more tactical in nature. And we're going to talk about their series of collaborations with Emerson knives, my favorite of which are the D2 steel versions, which are going to give you a little bit of extra edge retention over those 8CR steel variants. And my favorite one, at least for right now, is the CQC 4K XL, which is nearly 4 inches of reach for about $58. Now with this whole series of CQC knives, you're going to get Kershaw's solid budget construction with Emerson's formidable design language, complete with multiple options for blade deployment. Now we do have a frame lock, but no SpeedSafe in this case. This is a manual opening knife, but you get an ambidextrous thumb disc here. You can open that easily with either hand, and just like the studs on the Blur, this type of design makes it easier for a gloved thumb to actuate the blade. Now more importantly though, we've got the patented Emerson Wave opener. And this allows you to open the knife as you draw it from your pants just by catching the tab here on the hem of your pocket. It's going to rotate that open, no problem. With that, you're going to have speed of access, so you're ready to cut in just an instant. And it's real fun to look at this blade too. You've got a nice two-tone finish with some stone wash and satin finishes going on. Now, if this one's a little bit too big for you, this whole series does get the dual opening methods, so you can find smaller and less expensive designs in it. So if you don't like this one, make sure to check those out. All right, next up, we're going to get to some things that are a little bit different. And of course, Kershaw is very well known for their SpeedSafe spring-assisted opening knives, as you've seen in this list so far. But they also make some phenomenal fully automatic knives, and they call them their Launch series. That series is very well regarded, and they've expanded to a number of models over the years. And I think they represent probably the best bargain in the automatic world, because you're going to get premium materials, excellent pricing, and push-button action that can rival the best in the industry. And I think the Launch 8 is probably the most popular, and for very good reason. This matte disc in design really channels the spirit of those old school Italian stilettos just about perfectly. This is an ideal first automatic to get, but even if you already own several, there's still a lot to love here, especially considering this is priced just under $100 right now. It's American made, you've got anodized aluminum handles, a few different color options, and stonewashed CPM 154 steel. And even if this weren't a great automatic, that combination right there would be well worth the price. But of course, you do have that push button action, which, like I said, is hard to beat. You get a deep carry clip as well on this knife, so this is a great model for EDC if it is an option for you. Doesn't take up a ton of room in the pocket, and you've got plenty of reach with that blade. It's about 3.5 inches long with a shape that's going to be really great for opening letters or packages or breaking down boxes. You've even got a nice detail in the front of the handle right here that makes it really nice on pinch grips. I'm also a big fan of the Launch 9, which is known as one of the California compliant models with a 1.8-inch blade that's still very useful as a smaller EDC. And because there's actually less steel for the spring to move around, these smaller Launch knives seem to slam open even more satisfyingly than the larger knives. Plus, this knife is just a great little shape, especially attractive with those cool dual fullers on the blade. Materials are the same with the CPM 154 and aluminum, as well as the deep carry clip, and this one's priced around $90. And because of the complexity of these models, they don't get too much cheaper than that, but no matter which launch model you choose, you're gonna get all those same great materials and build quality, with prices ranging from about $75 to $120 right now, depending on the model. Now, when I say they're a good bargain, what I really mean is this. You could easily spend over twice that amount of money and still not get everything as good as you get with a launch knife. So the last one for our list today is a new knife this year, the Lucha butterfly knife. And this is what I love about Kershaw and their ability to hit a really good value proposition. They saw a hole in the mid-priced Balisong market, and they felt they could do something better than what little was out there in that price range, and I think they did a really good job. Now, these are priced at about $120 for the stonewashed version, or about $140 for this brand new blackwashed version. And the action on these are quite good. You've got KVT bearings in both of the pivots for low friction flipping, and while the stainless steel handles aren't as lightweight as more premium titanium, they're essentially milled and drilled for weight reduction, and they are balanced quite well. Personally, my favorite part though is the blade itself. I love the shape, it's very attractive to my eye, and if you're so inclined to actually use the Lucha as a knife and not just as a flipping object, you get some really nice edge geometry and that very good 14C 28N steel. But if you want to start flipping and you want a full-blown Bally and you want to skip past any of the trainer models, it's honestly really hard to not recommend the Lucha as the place to start. All right, that is it for the end of my list of the best Kershaw folding knives you can buy right now in 2020. Make sure to let me know what you thought of my picks down there in the comments, and drop your favorite Kershaw model down there as well. Would love to hear what you're excited about. In the meantime, if you want to get your hands on any of these knives, we will leave links in the description to take you over to KnifeCenter.com. And be sure to sign up for our Knife Rewards program while you're there, because if you're going to plunk down your hard-earned money on one of these knives, you might as well earn some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing off. See you next time.